I'm delighted to welcome back to the program Larry Nichols. Larry, how you feeling today?
Much better, thank you.
You sound good. Yeah, you sound strong, so that's good. Glad to hear you back in action. And Larry, you, in a conversation we were having earlier preparing for the show, you brought to my attention this op-ed. It's certainly been the week of op-eds, hasn't it? But you brought to my attention this op-ed that was in the Atlantic, written by none other than the Queen of Tholema, Hillary Clinton herself. What do you think about this, Larry? Isn't it sort of not the way to go for existing politicians to openly criticize the sitting president? That tradition seems to be out the window, no?
Yeah, Jason, it's all it's all manifesting into the day that I don't want to see come, but it's coming. You know it's coming. I know it's coming. Many of your listeners know. But the Democrats are pushing through what Obama tried to push through, which was a total transformation of our form of government. And that's what they're doing right now.
We've heard a lot, Larry, about democratic socialism, and I mean, it sort of starts this way, right? They put the idea out there. We had Bernie Sanders with certain socialistic kind of ideas and policies and tendencies, and they kind of get it out there, and now they've made it cool to be a democratic socialist, to resist, and to, even if you're working for the president, they've made it cool to steal items off of his desk, or as the James O'Keefe Project Veritas expose shows us, to use government resources in your federal job to work against the government. This is taxpayer-funded employees working to thwart the efforts of our own government, isn't it?
Yes, in 1986, when we worked on what's called the 86 Plan, one of the fundamentals was, which seemed far-fetched at the time, was to increase the government jobs market, make it desirable. Because if you made the federal jobs or the government jobs desirable, then you had votes for life. You had a huge segment of society in your pocket. That's what they started out doing in 86 and before, and they're doing it today. And listen, nothing more should be said, Jason, than 2016 presidential primary.
Right.
2016, folks, in case any of you missed it, more people voted for Bernie Sanders and the Vouch socialists, or Hillary, a socialist communist. Pretty much everybody understood what she was. More people voted for those two than voted for all the Republicans combined. All combined. Now that should scare you to your knees. Why? Let me tell you. Because if that means if on that day an election had been held to determine whether we wanted to change our form of government into something more contemporary, it would have changed that day. It would have changed, Jason.
I mean, that's crazy,
That's
Larry.
Scary.
Yeah.
And what's even crazier still is, Jason, this is the most successful form of government in the history of the world.
Yeah.
What we're living right now, with its flaws, with its problems, we're still the most successful form of government that's ever existed. Why? Why would people want to change?
I don't know. I mean, they don't want people to have freedom. They don't want people to have control. I mean, the only answer I can offer, I mean, I'm sure you have something in mind, is that there's been so much corruption going on that, she wasn't talking about this type of change when she was running, was she? She just wants it now that Donald Trump is in the power position. Yeah.
Now, let me tell you what Hillary does. And folks, you can put this in the bank. And it's not just Hillary. The majority of politicians do this. They stick their finger up in the air to see which way the parade's going. Then they run and get in front of it and say, follow me. That's what Hillary's doing.
Right.
You see, now it is safe to take that position. It's turning, and she knows it. But Jason, we're losing our country. We're losing that which is innate in all of us, bred into us. We've been blessed to grow up with, and we're losing it.
Larry,
and worse still than losing it, we're throwing it out the damn window.
Right. And obviously, we want to talk about this, try to curtail it. Larry, one of the things I enjoy most about having you on the show is that there's no other guest that I have who has more insight into the tactics of the Clintons. Obviously, you're not part of their staff or advisory board any longer, so it's difficult to speak to specifically what they're doing, but you know their MO, you know the way they operate and all that. So I want to ask you, when you see people coming out, like we've had Hillary Clinton go on Fox, and she's made speeches at Yale, she's come out with this, she didn't go on Fox. Fox was reporting on her piece in The Atlantic, but it always seems to me that there's some kind of coordination going on, because it wasn't just Hillary coming out with her op-ed in The Atlantic. We heard Barack Obama talking at University of, where was it? Somewhere there in Illinois. We've had Joe Biden now coming out saying he wishes he had said something about Trump sooner. And he's at the Human Rights Campaign. And what can you say about the coordination of effort? It seems to me that they want to put something out there and then have another third party corroborate that, because it feels like if we have more people talking about it, it gives it some kind of credibility. Is that true? Right.
Yeah. Circle reporting gives you credibility. We did this back in the 80s, so yes, it works. It works very well.
Circle reporting?
If you control the media.
What is circle reporting? Can you explain that?
Circle reporting is I give you a story, then I go over to the Washington Post and I say to the Washington Post, you've got to watch for this story coming out. It's a new one coming out and it's hot. Well, you go and listen, or the Post comes and listens to you, right? And then you're talking about this story. Well, the Post, this is what I mean by the media being compliant. The Post doesn't check out where you got it to find out that you got it from me, just like they did. They just think it's an exceptional story, and then the way you sell it is you'll be the first newspaper to have this story. We'll give you exclusive, and you'll be the first. There's all kinds of tricks we use to suck media into doing it.
And you've been directly involved.
Circle recording.
You've been directly involved in that kind of activity, right?
You bet. You bet.
We see them doing that in the case of the
Now, let me tell you another reason why I might have a little more insight, maybe, than some of your other guests. To my knowledge, I'm the only person, to my knowledge, I could be wrong now, but I don't think so, that has ever in the same year done orientation acclamation for both Republicans and Democrats. Both of them in the same year, after the same election.
And so
now,
what does that mean?
Orientation, I'm sorry?
So what does that mean? What are the implications of that?
The implications are that's where you get explained how the cow eats cabbage. That's where you get told, one, where the bathrooms are, two, how you have to be if you're going to make it in Washington. And, for example, you're going to have to start out tomorrow, every day from now during your tenure as senator or congressman, you're going to have to raise money 8 hours a day, every day, Saturdays, Sundays included, every day. If you don't, you will be here one term.
Got it.
Then we teach them how to, Jason, do you want to try to raise the millions of dollars it's going to take, or hundreds of thousands it's going to take for your campaign? Do you want to do that with your little constituents at $1 a piece or $10 a piece? Or hang with us, and we'll take you to parties and events, and we'll hook you up with people that'll write a check, one check, and cover a major portion of your election costs.
Right.
Which do you want? And it's pretty slick. It's pretty neat.
Well,
you're trapped. You're hooked.
And what you're describing really is something that we've seen in practice. The circle reporting, we've seen that in the case of the Christopher Steele dossier. It was, leaked maybe by McCain, and it went to BuzzFeed and then the New York Times, and it's sort of, you had that guy Isikoff for Yahoo who was the source and who was confirming it. So they really just put a story out there and spin it up among all these people. And then now what you're talking about with this orientation, obviously there's lots of ways. I mean, to just say, oh, politicians are after money, that's a very broad statement. But to understand the intricacies of how these relationships are managed and where the money comes from, I think is very interesting for people to know.
Well, I say it is. I guess it is. It's just business as usual for me or somebody in the trade. It's just what you do. See, that's what happened. Somewhere along the way, we stopped caring. And Jason, just like you said right there, you're seeing this stuff. You've seen it. It's happening. You're recognizing it. Maybe you didn't recognize the formal trade name for this type
of
tactic, but you saw it happening. Well, saw it happening. People see it happening. And that's proven by the low favorability to Congress. But then we get to that point, and then that's it. That's it. And you can't do that.
What do you mean we get to that point and that's it?
Yeah, it's kind of what I said. You get to that point where people are seeing it, recognizing it. And then, you know what? Then there's nothing I can do about it and walking away.
Well, but what you're doing right now is very helpful because, yes, we see it, but then someone verbalizes it and we recognize that it's an ongoing thing. I mean, I've always said it's like learning a language. The first time you hear it, it just sounds like nonsense. And as you become more familiar with the sounds, the words, these are the steps towards first understanding the language. And if we don't even understand what's going on, which seems to be a large part of how politics in general in the United States works, so much of this stuff is intended to just gloss by. And from that standpoint, you're right. The press is complicit because the news has become a form of entertainment where it's prepackaged. It's in these 2, 3, 5.5 minute little bites that get, handed out as the advertisers and the billionaire organizations that control these news outlets desire. So I want to bring you back around to the topic that we have really themed this episode, which is, of course, Mr. Kavanaugh, his ongoing confirmation hearings, and Hillary's plan of kill them while they're young, as you explained to me. Talk to us a little bit about that. What is that kill them while they're young plan, and how does it apply to Kavanaugh?
That one, as you know, got me in a lot of trouble.
Let's hear about it.
That was the case where I had been to the surgeon and I had surgery. I was still under the influence, and I came back, and some radio guy came through, his name, wanted me to do a show, and I went on, and I was talking about killing them when they're young, and then he got in saying, well, you mean you killed them? And I would have said I was howdy doody. You know, I was so drugged up, and I just went along with it and said yes.
Got it.
But I have paid severely for it. Now, what it actually means is when someone comes out against the Clintons, the system says you kill them while they're young. And we don't mean bang, bang, you're dead. You stop breathing, kill you. What we do is destroy you. We destroy your name. We destroy your family. We destroy your life. There will be a moment in time, most probably, in Kavanaugh's confirmation thing, that he would probably settle in a second to be assassinated, because that would be much more humane than what he's going to get.
Wow.
And you're seeing it. You're seeing it play out right now. You're seeing it with Kavanaugh. I mean, you telling me 36, 37 years ago, a woman comes out of the woodwork, claims he did whatever he did with her? Are you kidding me?
Well, not only that, it seems that there are a lot of questions about some of the familial relationships with this accuser and certain judgments and things that have happened in the past where I'm not 100% up to speed on what's going on with the accuser and Mr. Kavanaugh, but I agree that it does seem like it sort of came out of nowhere. I mean, these tactics match things that we're seeing elsewhere, right? Like when something isn't working against Donald Trump, they don't present stronger evidence to support that first something. They come up with something else, and they're just like throwing whatever on the wall to see what sticks. And this seems to be happening in so many situations. My detractors are doing this. Can you talk a bit about that strategy, Larry, how they seem to pivot and just keep coming up with new nonsense to throw at people?
Well, certainly, but let me say this. There's a key to Kavanaugh where I know, or somebody on the inside of the trade or industry should know, that it's a trumped-up deal, no pun intended.
Right.
You know what that is, Jason? And it sticks out like a sore thumb, but I'll bet you nobody has brought it up to you.
Tell me.
She's an attorney.
The accuser.
The accuser is an attorney, as I understand. Now, what that means is they went and they found somebody that can handle herself in the courtroom. It's a little risky. You know, you may get somebody, it's not simple saying I go in there and claim this on Kavanaugh. I mean, it's one thing to say it, it's another to walk in that courtroom and have the grit and the strength to pull it off. So generally what they'll try to find is somebody with, at some point in their career, some sort of law experience, because they know how to handle themselves in court.
Right.
And Rule 101 law is, and Hillary taught me this one. Hillary taught me this. She said, Larry, when you go into a courtroom, everybody's lying except one person. And I said, well, who is that? She said, you. And you're the fool.
You've told me that in the past. You know, it's an interesting point that you bring up, Larry, about this woman who is accusing Brett Kavanaugh of basically sexual assault in high school. And so the fact that she's an attorney I find very interesting, because I'm just looking at an article from the New York Times from earlier today, and the upshot of this article is that the accuser has yet to confirm that she would appear at this hearing. And,
Right.
you know, lawyers that I know are very punctual with response to communications related to litigation like this, because they don't like to wait and let things happen by default. So that's curious that she didn't respond. Even the failing New York Times is speculating that this raises doubts as to whether or not she plans to attend. And I would certainly say, you know, we've heard Judge Jeanine Pirro on Fox News talk about the criteria for evaluating these types of sexual assault allegations, because of course this is a very sticky scenario. We definitely want to recognize victims and the need to hear their allegations. We don't want women who have, or anyone who's been victimized, to feel that they won't be heard. But at the same time, you know, we do want everyone to be innocent until proven guilty. And if this woman's waited
Absolutely.
30, 40 years.
There's the kicker, Jason.
Yeah.
How do you cross that line? Yes, we want everyone's case to be heard. But at some point, you've got to draw some line somewhere. And I think what's got to be said about this case is, you know, this puppy, especially with her being an attorney, all right, knowing law, why would she wait 36 years?
Right.
Now, he's had other positions that required confirmation. So if it were simply a matter of blackmail or extortion, she's had probably 10 different cases to push that. Why? Why now? Unless it's a part of the montage of kill them while they're young. Kill them while they're young. And then if that don't work, you just literally destroy them forever.
Well, and when you say
the reciprocal of that is, and here's where we're headed with this, which is why I'm so adamant against it. We're getting to the point, Jason, where people are not going to take appointments. Why would you?
Exactly. That's what I wanted to get to. When you say kill them while they're young, you're not referring to the actual age of Mr. Kavanaugh, I presume. You mean kill him while his career is young, because if the guy gets appointed to the Supreme Court, he will ascend to a tremendous level of power that obviously would be in favor of Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, right?
Or his agenda's young, or the change in the court could be young. You know, the modern, taking the court from liberal to conservative. And you see, the Supreme Court shouldn't even be about this, folks. The Supreme Court of the United States of America, the legal scale of the land. Dear God, it's not supposed to be about liberalism or conservatism. It's supposed to be about constitutionalism.
Blind justice.
It's about the Constitution.
Right.
And it's just as wrong, I swear to God, for somebody to try to load a conservative on the Supreme Court, except for one thing: the Democrats. Democrats are going to load that damn thing with somebody that is going to vote 100% liberal. They will do that. So in the interest of balancing our judicial system, that's what he forced this president, believe it or not, to have to do some conservative test, essentially. I know they all say they don't, but they do.
Well, you've raised an important point, Larry. You've said that they're doing this so that basically no one will even want to take an appointment. And by that, I understand that you mean, you know, it's one thing to prevent Brett Kavanaugh from being appointed to the Supreme Court, but everything that's happening with Kavanaugh, with Paul Manafort, with Michael Cohen, with Carter Page, I mean, they're just, and now we see Dr. Corsi, Dr. Jerome Corsi has been subpoenaed by Mueller's special counsel. I find it very curious to note that certain internet journalists, specifically my former associate, have now come out and they're playing a game of pile-on where they are disseminating lies about Dr. Corsi, and I've been attempting to communicate with the doctor about that, but understandably he's been very tight-lipped. I haven't spoken to him in a few days. I can only presume his lawyers have told him, do not engage with anyone, don't say anything. They're most concerned, I would think, about the doctor testifying in whatever sort of hearing he's been subpoenaed to and not saying anything or responding to any of these false accusations. But it's disconcerting that we see people in the media, not just the mainstream media, but now the alternative media on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and all these other places, trying to smear someone like Dr. Corsi. And as you say with Kavanaugh, it seems like they just want to, anyone who comes on Crowdsource the Truth, people call me and tell me terrible things about you that I'm not inclined to believe. Whatever guest I have on, you know, they want to try to make it difficult for me to do anything by scaring people from being associated with me. Is that the same tactic we're seeing here?
Well, now, what they're probably advising Dr. Corsi is part of the operation called playing tennis. Don't play tennis.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I'm representing you and you're being attacked, all right, I'm a handler. That's what I did. I'm a handler. And you're being attacked. What I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say, Jason, here's what you do, buddy. When a reporter comes up to you in the hallway or whatever and asks you a question, don't say a word. Just
Right.
walk on by.
Right.
Now, if they ask you a question like, do you think it's going to rain tomorrow? That seems simple enough, right? That's easy.
Innocuous, right?
Yes, but what you don't realize is you got sucked in. Because if you say, I don't think it'll rain tomorrow, I'm thinking, what's that got to do to hurt me?
Right.
Well, you're picking up your racket and you're playing tennis. Because now he hits you the ball, you served it back to him, now he's going to hit it back to you again. And it's just going to keep on, back and forth until eventually you lay your racket down and walk away. So playing tennis, not playing tennis, actually means you lay your racket down. They're going to be mad. They're probably going to call you names. But, Jason, they're going to call you names anyway. Why do we keep feeding them thinking that they'll treat us fairly when they're not going to treat us fairly? Right. So anyway, lay your racket down. They get pissed off. But you know what? You're not playing tennis. You just walk on by.
Right.
And at least they can't hurt you with what you said. So
right.
It's actually a strategy, buddy. I mean, it's a very tight strategy, a tight game.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think that, well, obviously, based on what you're saying, Dr. Corsi is much smarter than me because he's putting down his racket and not playing tennis, and I'm trying to dispel the lies of people who would spread these rumors.
Right, and you're trying to help him, granted, dispel the lies, but here's what happens. If he answers you and you publish it,
right,
then that's the same thing if he answered the Washington Post. I mean, they'll nail him just hard. So the best thing for him to do is just lay his racket down and walk away. It's frustrating to everybody. It makes everybody mad. But I'm telling you, you cannot do it any other way. And, you know, and all this stuff I'm telling you, guys and Jason, all this stuff I'm telling you, it's what handlers specialize in. It's what we do. Not like very much, but that's what we do.
Right. So why do you think they're doing this? Why is everybody piling on to the doctor right now? Why would these internet journalists, you know, it's been going on for a while.
They are, if you're asking me what has changed, what's going on, I'm going to answer you this way. We're to the point where they're closing the deal. They feel like they have the strength today to transform our government. They think with the visibility of Kavanaugh and the fact that everybody knows Kavanaugh is a good appointment, people know he's a good appointment. But if they can't approve him, then what can Congress do? Right?
Right.
Then they got Trump. Well, if they can't, on one side, if they can't convict Trump, then if he's not guilty of anything, then why can't they set him free? So once again, they're proving that our government is antiquated.
So it's sort of...
And they're fixing to shut it down.
See, this is so interesting to hear this from you, Larry, because I've observed things that are reminiscent of what you're saying. So, in my view, it seems that part of what they want to do is set up a scenario not just where they're trying to entice someone into something or trap someone in doing something, but to ideally for them, it's to have a scenario where if you go this way, they have a way to, you know, screw you up. If you go this other way, they have a different way to screw you up. They're sort of trying to get you into a checkmate type scenario.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is.
I've observed that.
I've never really heard it called checkmate, but that's what it is.
Right.
And you defined it very well. They have worked us into this situation, and that's why I'm scared. They've worked us into this situation. And to be honest, I don't think we have true, I'm saying true conservatives enough to match them and to block them. I mean, we're talking about like a high school chess guy up against the greatest chess player in the world. I mean, what chance would a high school chess guy have against the greatest player in the world? Not much. Well, that's kind of where we're at.
Right. It's troubling, Larry, because...
I'll tell you something else. The Greece, the government, part of the government in Greece, contacted me, and they need my help to try to help them turn their country around.
Wow.
Yes.
Are you going to go to Greece?
I can't go to Greece. You know I can't travel. But I can help, I think. See, what's weird, in Greece, as of yet, I don't have a bad name. You mentioned my name here. Whoa. You mentioned my name in Britain. Not a bad name. You mentioned it in Japan. It's not a bad name. Australia. Not a bad name. You mentioned it here, and it's like you're talking about a different Larry Nichols.
Right. You know, Larry, I want to share something with our viewers that you and I had discussed. And I mean, again, this is pretty standard practice. I've had people on the show who are, you know, virtually unknown. I mean, you obviously have been around for years. You've been on InfoWars. You've been on, you know, lots of other shows. People know who you are. I had a woman who was running for, I think, county something or other in Las Vegas. Had her on one time, And immediately they began slamming her, putting out insulting videos about her. I had a fellow citizen journalist, Holly Seelger, on one time. Right away, multiple individuals started coming out with reports trying to poke into Holly's life, trying to do things to make these people uncomfortable about appearing on my show. So there seems to be a pretty coordinated effort to intimidate my guests, to intimidate my associates, to, people who've been sending Charles Ortel material forever, trying to just make people feel that it would be easier for them to not deal with Crowdsource the Truth than to come on the show. And, everything that these people are sharing seems to be lies. So when you come on the show and someone sends me an email or sends me a message on Twitter or something like that saying X, Y, or Z about Larry, it's nothing new. And I mean, just the very act of doing this causes me to have to spend a lot of time and be very suspicious of anyone who contacts me with new information, because I've now gotten to the point where I must default to the position that most people who are contacting me cold are very likely people who are being sent to deceive me. And so someone had been contacting me for a while saying that Larry's not actually sick, he's being investigated by this person, he's been sued by this person, contact this person. They want me to go do all this investigating of you, which I don't have the bandwidth to do, and I also, from a practical standpoint, I can't do that for everyone who comes on the show. Now, the interesting thing is this person had been contacting me under two accounts, one with a female name and one with a male name, and I had no indication that this was anything other than two people. And as you pointed out, they give the story to one person, they give the story to another person, and you're like, wait a minute, I read this in the Atlantic, now I've read it in the Huffington Post, perhaps there's something to this. But in the case of this person who was contacting me about you, I discovered that the male person attributed with the email address and the female person were one and the same. So someone was trying to deceive me into thinking that they were two separate people to share information about you. And why should I believe someone who is proven to be lying? I mean, this is really disturbing.
Well, and what you have to watch out for, and the way this is played is simple. When they say, you need to check into this, you need to check into that, you need to check into this, look into that, what they're doing is laying out a month's worth of work for you.
Exactly.
And then what happens, it's easier for you to say, I don't have the time, the money, the people. It's better just not to have Larry on than to go through this crap.
Right.
Now, that's where we get beat, right there. Look, I don't think you've ever had me come on this program and say I was anything but a scumbag. I don't claim to be anything. Anybody that works for the Clintons just as trashy as I am. And I worked for them. Much of what's going on today, I helped build. Did. And all I can do is try to fix it. All I can do, Jason, is take what I know from working with them and use it against them.
Right.
And if this country wants to allow people like that one that you're dealing with or dealt with, if they'd rather pay attention to her, then so be it, Doug. So be it. I'm not going to play tennis with the bitch. I'm not.
Right. So you say just ignore these people, irrespective of what they say, irrespective of what they, however horrendous.
Yeah, because, I mean, no matter what they say, if I say something else, they'll come back and say, well, what about on July 19th, 1881? And then I got to come back and say, well, I was in my bed July 19th, 1981. Well, what about January the 1st, 2011? All of a sudden you're back playing tennis, Jason.
Right.
Plus you're elevating these people to your level. They don't deserve to be elevated. Folks, listen to me. These people spreading disinformation, they do not deserve, they have not earned the right to get your respect. They haven't been in the game. They haven't been out there fighting for this nation, I assure you that. And what kind of person is it, Jason? What kind of person is it that hates me so much that they would destroy the country to get at me? Huh?
Hard to say. I mean, I told this person to have whoever it is that they want me to contact me, and that didn't happen. So it's interesting.
And then if somebody does contact you, how in the hell do you know it's somebody that's real? I mean, you have no idea how this shit plays.
Well, that's right. That's right. Because, I mean, there's been, again, my former associate has taken to, announcing publicly what he thinks I should do and tweeting about it and whatnot. But of course, he's blocked me from Twitter. It's a very disingenuous way of, as you say, trying to draw me into this tennis game where, he's spewing out balls from one of those tennis serving machines that are filled with concrete. So he's trying to lure me into a trap.
And, Jason, I don't know how to say this any more plain for the audience. I know you know it, but this is for the audience. Folks, Jason can't win. I can't win. We can't win spending 90% of our day combating junk that these people want to put out. And, Jason, you talk about the organization. They have got an organization. I was there. I know. You've got your national organization. Then you've got your regional organization. Then you've got your state organization. Then you've got your county organization. I mean, they've got a structure like a party. As a matter of fact, it is a spinoff of their party. It is.
So let me ask you this, Larry. We've been speaking a lot with targeted individuals, people who tell me that wherever they go, they're being stalked by people, harassed, called names, etc., and that it's an organized gang stalking campaign. One of them, Michael Barden, has even pointed me to a website where he's shown where they're hiring for these types of jobs. Did you ever, in your work with the Clintons, witness them employing this type of gang stalking to go and do this type of subtle disruption to people who they wanted to throw off in some way?
Well, I guess maybe I did. There were occasions when we would hire a guy named Larry Case, who was a private investigator, who was worthless scumbag, and we'd pay him to dig up some mud on people. But as real, no. I mean, as real, he had the media, Stevens's and the Clintons had the media in Arkansas, so you didn't need gumshoes.
So wait a second, you've just said something very important. They had the media in Arkansas. This is said so frequently, but it bears repeating. Controlling the media, controlling the message is really, it's getting you kind of 90% of the way there to controlling what people think, isn't it?
Look, there's those out there right now listening and don't believe me, so let me break it down. I'm just going to deal with national news today. Jason, did you know 98%, they say 98, I bet it's even higher, 98% of the people in this nation get that which they consider to be enough national news on their 6 and 10 o'clock newscasts locally to make decisions relative to this country.
Who says that?
The media,
Wow.
the ad age. Now, here's where it gets funky. In a local newscast, You have the time you run sports, the time you run local news, the time you run weather, the time you run local events, etc. Most programming, according to Ad Age, generates between 4 to 8 minutes of national news, taken in commercials, etc. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, 4 to 8 minutes. Well, here's the kicker, guys. Do you think your television station where you live in your little community of nowhere, America, do you think your television station's got a reporter in Washington, D.C.? Cover national news? If you think you do, you're wrong. TV news is distributed by CNN, NBC, CBS, ABC, Fox with their affiliates, and I think there's one or two subgroups. But they're the people that feed it to everybody, Jason. You know that.
And Larry, wasn't it Bill Clinton who eliminated the blockades on the consolidation of media ownership and made it possible for large companies to own all these outlets? That's interesting, for sure.
Sure did.
While we're speaking, Larry, people are sending me important information. So, of course, this woman who has accused Mr. Kavanaugh is a professor, and her name is Christine Blasey Ford. And I've just received, this just came in. People should definitely look into this and see if this has merit, but someone has sent me this piece of information which indicates that Dr. Ford oversees a CIA undergraduate internship program at Stanford University, and that the program was developed by CIA-connected Stanford University psychiatric professor Frederick T. Melgus in 1985. And then they refer to the doctor as Mr. Melgus, so that's not good. But he took under his care the homeless woman Lois Lang, who assassinated CIA paymaster Nick Deek. I don't know about any of this, but this is interesting.
No, I don't either.
I mean, we could certainly check this. We could see if Dr. Christine Ford is part of Stanford University, and if the CIA internship program exists there. Could be disinfo, but I mean, again, you know, the purpose of Crowdsource the Truth is to aggregate information and to use our collective knowledge to determine what is correct and what is incorrect. I don't know the answers to these questions.
This is one of the stories for someone like you that I would say that's interesting for sure, but if it's real, over the next few days, it's going to come out.
Right. Who
And I
this
don't
woman
think you're in a
is
position
associated
to
with.
spend the assets that you need to verify it yourself. Just wait until it sticks its head up for real.
Yeah.
You know, when you're dealing with internet sources, I beg people to use discernment with just a touch of common sense, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Please.
Well, it's true of everything, Larry, right? I mean, we've arrived at this place, unfortunately, where it doesn't seem to matter if Kavanaugh did these things or not. The allegations have been so widely publicized that they are now, for so many people, they're just associated with this man in a way that they will never go away. So this is sort of what you're saying by kill them while they're young. They start putting out this information from the beginning, all this bad information, so that when people Google this guy, I mean, what comes up right now is all about this Dr. Christine Ford Blasey and her allegations of things that she alleges he did in high school. How can it be proven or disproven? It's just, it's a smear. It's the essence of a smear, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the tenets of this type of operation is you cannot disprove a negative. You got it?
Right.
So, folks, when you're seeing that being done, you know you're being had. You
Right.
can't disprove a negative. The negative never happened.
Well, there's
You
other
see,
things.
our judicial system's even screwed now since we went to statutory law. Used to, the scale of justice was to tilt towards the individual, right? Innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
Now, unless you represent yourself pro se, the scale of justice tilts for the prosecution in all
Well,
matters.
but of course, representing yourself pro se, back to Michael Barden, the targeted individual, he was sort of roped into a scenario where he got arrested. Someone pulled a gun on him and he got arrested, and now he's got real legal jeopardy. Fake lawsuits alleging defamation are one thing, but Michael now is facing possible prison time, and he was telling me that he suspects his lawyer is in on it. He's sort of not helping him. And he was contemplating representing himself pro se. And again, it's one thing to represent yourself pro se in a civil matter, but I think the stakes are so much higher in criminal, particularly when you've got no experience as an attorney.
Yes, and look, folks, I don't mean to burst anybody's bubble. All right? Nobody. But there's a reason our founding fathers, as it was originally done, prohibited two people from serving in Congress. Two. One was witches. You could not be a witch in the early days, foundational days of our country, and serve in Congress. And the other one was barristers.
Huh. Lawyers.
Guys, it's hard for me, knowing the legal people I know and have known, and to have seen the legal system as it is today. You realize, Jason, I have never seen the legal system as I was taught that it was. I've never seen it.
What do you mean?
The only legal system I have ever seen is this crooked one. And when you start talking pro se, folks, there's one little caveat to pro se. You better know what the hell you're doing. Because the judge will give you one time to come in that courtroom, and he'll bless you with giving you a little leniency. But he will explain how the cow eats cabbage for the next time you show up. If you show up unprepared, you will go to jail.
It's a difficult situation, of course, Larry, for people to navigate. So, I think that, we're seeing lots of signs that there are known tactics, and, boxing someone into a corner, forcing them to a situation where whatever direction they turn, there's something else waiting for them to surprise them, to put them into greater jeopardy or something like that. It seems to be a well-honed method.
Look at a simple thing like kneeling for the national anthem.
Say again?
That should not, kneeling for the national anthem, that should not be a complicated legal issue.
Right.
Owners should be able to work it out with the players. They just should. But when you let the attorneys get involved, or the players' union, then for the owners' unions and everybody else's unions that owns the owners or whatever, when the attorneys get in it, now it's just shake it up. You don't know where it's going to end.
Right. Well, those guys get paid by the hour, Larry.
And I was told by Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton himself, of course, he was not a good lawyer, but, he said, Nichols, you could go downtown Conway and shoot a man right between the eyes in front of everybody in that town. And he said, you know what reality is? And I said, no. He said, reality would be that there's 50-50 chance you can walk out scot-free.
That's crazy.
But the more I've learned and looked and watched and listened, guess what? He's telling the truth.
They know a lot about how the system works, Larry. You know, people are talking about the red wave. I think that what we're seeing right now, and of course this is my opinion, they're just doing whatever they can do to affect this in any way possible. They've got Mueller delaying General Flynn's sentencing because they don't want General Flynn being done with his legal jeopardy so that he could become more outspoken and go on the news and go on podcasts and shows like this and others. They want Alex Jones off the air because he obviously had an impact on the election of President Trump. They want all these op-eds to come out, making people think. There's this perception, it's groupthink, it's peer pressure, it's, you know, most people,
exactly right.
Yeah, they don't like to go against the grain. If everybody is saying something and thinking something, it really is like a mass hypnosis. It's crazy.
You know, collective thinking, I don't know where this got started, but collective thinking does not immediately prove to be correct thinking. It doesn't. Doesn't at all.
Yeah.
We got troubles. We got troubles, guys, but our troubles, unfortunately, just like Jason said right there, they come on, they do an op-ed piece. Op-ed is not hard-hitting news. Op-ed is opinion, folks.
An anonymous op-ed is the craziest thing we've ever heard of. You know, Larry, I'm getting an interesting question right here. We're towards the end of our session here, but we can touch on this, and maybe if you'd like to talk about it, we can take as much time as you like, or possibly do a future show. But It's Whip wants to know if you've ever commented on human trafficking and the Clintons and what you know. You've spoken to us a bit about Jeffrey Epstein, but can you say anything about this human trafficking question?
You know, to all of you, that was not during my day that prevalent, okay? When I was around them, there were probably two things I would not have done. Two. Only two, probably. Two. One, I would have had nothing to do with drugs, smuggling drugs. As I told Bill Clinton, when I told him that I knew what was going on at the agency I worked at, if my daughter or Chelsea ever got hooked on drugs, it would kill me that I was a part of it. And then the other thing that I would have never done, although I was not really ever exposed to it, was human trafficking. I don't think I could have done that. I saw enough of that in Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras. I don't think I would have been part of that. I know that's probably a disappointing answer, but...
Well, no, I mean, if that's all you have to say about it, that's fine. We've got someone here who thinks we're full of crap, so I don't know if that's a very well-founded response, but there you go.
Who said we're full of crap?
Just some, anonymous moron here on YouTube is saying that. But no point in playing tennis with them, Larry, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's nuts.
I do want to remind people that they can read more about Larry by going to nicholslive.com. They can financially support Larry, and they can read blog posts and find scripts that they can use to call up their congressional representatives. Larry's team has conveniently consolidated all the phone numbers and contact information for the congressional representatives, and they're located on the Nichols Live website at the link with the scripts here. So you can just log on there, and even if you think Larry and I are full of crap, perhaps it's worth a financial contribution just for the work that's been done in assembling this valuable resource. So again, I'm not necessarily here to vet everything that's said to me by everyone, but rather present the information and allow the members of the Crowdsource community to do the vetting. Larry, I personally don't feel like you're full of crap. I think you've shared a lot of interesting insights with us, and I always enjoy our conversations. You've been very polite and professional with me, and I do appreciate you creating this show with me and supporting Crowdsource the Truth. I think you know we've moved a lot of our programming to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And we've done that to combat the algorithmic assault that various posers and morons have been able to utilize by gaming YouTube and using thousands of fake accounts and things like that to interfere with our ability to broadcast. By sponsoring the show for as little as $1 a month, the average has been about $5 per month. People can make sure that they are enjoying these broadcasts on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth in an environment where serious people are there, not trolls, not people who are sending me emails from multiple fake accounts to try to discourage my guests from appearing on the show or to try to discourage me from having particular guests on the show. Larry, people want me to ask you all kinds of questions here, but we are running out towards the end of our episode here. Perhaps you and I could schedule an episode in the future where we specifically plan to take questions from the audience. How would you feel about that?
That'd be wonderful. Be glad. We'd love to do it.
There we go.
And let me say this about the Patreon, folks.
Yes.
Guys, I don't know if y'all are listening to us, and I don't know if you believe me, but you better look around. Look at what I say and look at what's happening around you and around the country. Now, folks, I came here so that I could have one place that I could go on for health reasons and others, that I could go on one show, and this is it, right here. Jason needs sponsors, Patreon. He's cut it to where $1 can participate. So, folks, it's your turn. All of you out there, it's your turn. I've done everything I can do, and I'm doing everything I can do. It's your turn to step up. Please, step up.
I appreciate it, Larry.
Help us get the word out with this program.
Yeah.
Please.
It's important. You know, you were there in the early days on InfoWars, and now we see the coordinated effort by massive tech companies, multi-billion-dollar technology and media companies who have pushed InfoWars out of the spectrum. We spoke with Brandon Straka yesterday, who got banned from Facebook for simply typing in the word InfoWars. He told his followers he would be appearing on the show, and they blocked his account and then restored it later without even informing him. So I really appreciate your support, Larry. I appreciate all the generous sponsors on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Tonight, Larry, at 8 p.m., we're going to be doing a special show. We've got a special episode of More Pain, the new show featuring Michael Moore, the journalist formerly known as Thomas Paine of True Pundit. We're going to be joined by Larry Klayman, and we're going to be beginning our deep dive and doing our first release of the FOIA documents that Freedom Watch has received from their Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against Robert Mueller's special counsel office. We've spent the past day or two putting these documents together in a convenient format for people to download. And the first group to have access to these will be sponsors of Crowdsource the Truth True Pundit, and Freedom Watch. So people should go over to patreon.com and sponsor those entities now. Be ready to watch the show tonight at 8, and then tomorrow we're going to do a wide release of those documents. So we want to make sure that our most serious viewers, people who really want this information and who have been generous enough to sponsor these shows to help us move forward with the effort, will have first access to that information. And, you know, Larry, Mr. Klayman is telling me that he sees evidence, and of course Michael Moore and I have been going through these things. Michael's finding even more evidence that the special counsel's office has been not only leaking grand jury information to the press, they're suppressing information that they're supposed to produce at the court order of Judge Emmett Sullivan. So we'll see what's happening with that tonight at 8 o'clock. My guest has been Larry Nichols. People can visit Larry's website at nicholslive.com, and they can support Larry there, help him in the ongoing effort to preserve our democratic republic before it's too late. So I want to thank Larry for joining me. I think everyone is really pleased to see you feeling well and in good spirits this week, Larry. I will speak to you very soon, and thank you so much, as always, for coming to the show.
Thank you, babe. See you next week.
Talk to you next week, Larry. Take care of yourself. And thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you tonight at 8.